Hello and welcome to Aliens Revealed Live. I'm your host, Dean Caparella, here on the Paranormal UK Radio Network. From alien abductions to monster-infested ranches to Men in Black, we speak to some of the most amazing people on the planet, ready and willing to share their chilling stories with you. All from the Aliens Revealed Live files here on the Paranormal UK Radio Network. Is there real proof that aliens exist? You'd have to be a bigger skeptic than Philip Klass to deny the evidence is overwhelming. Just read some of the articles on our site alone, arlhub.com, from well-credentialed witnesses to realise that we are not alone. Proof aliens exist is all around us, and just recently the Department of Defence released 3 Navy videos that contained unidentified aerial phenomena. Not that that's anything startling to UFO devotees, but the fact that they have admitted something is out there is startling in itself. From abductees to close encounter experiences to UFO witnesses, and even those threatened with retribution if they talk, let's all admit there's plenty of proof that aliens exist. In fact, today you could almost be considered to be in the minority if you disagree. Meanwhile, 2 pieces of metal allegedly pulled off the bottom of a wedge-shaped ET craft has created strong interest for more than 2 decades. The alien craft allegedly came down on the White Sands Proving Ground in the late 1940s. Pieces of it have captivated those who have come into contact with it, as well as the UFO fraternity. Leading UFO researcher Linda Moulton Howe has been heavily involved in researching these mysterious objects for more than 20 years. And if you doubted the existence of ET before this, her account will leave you in no doubt that we are not alone. I was left mesmerised by her detailed description of the 5 letters she received over a span of about 4 months. They came from the grandson of a man who served in the army during the 1940s. He was a security guard during the golden period of alleged crashed alien craft in New Mexico during that time. 4 of the letters were preceded by 2 pieces of metal allegedly pulled off the crashed ET craft. Moulton Howe connected with the man, and each of the letters were released individually during that time. She said the man told her that what he was sending her were truly part of his grandfather's legacy. Linda Moulton Howe is UFO research's First Lady. She's been heavily involved in researching this mysterious object for more than 20 years. As I said earlier, if you doubted the existence of ET before this story will leave you in no doubt that we are not alone. Linda joins us now. Hi, Linda.
Thank you. And please just put the context of all of this work in what I have been for 40 years as an investigative reporter and TV producer, and that it was the investigation of the bloodless, trackless animal mutilations when I was director of special projects at the CBS station in Denver, and that I started the investigation in the fall of '79 when there was a second or third round, depending on which rancher and sheriff you talk to, of this being in cycles going back to the early 60s, and that a lot of people have been, I'm going to say they're thinking about it, have been manipulated and guided by government counter intel, people who have admitted it, that they put out that the explanation was predator, disease, or satanic cults. Sheriffs knew that was not true. Deputies knew that was not true. The Royal Canadian Mounted Police in Canada knew that was not true. And to back that up, when my documentary that kind of came out like a bomb with huge ratings on May 25th, 1980 was the first live broadcast. It was a 90-minute special that evening. And what I had done was go with a crew and go with camera and audio to get people in front of our cameras with firsthand testimony. If they were in law enforcement, if they were reporters, if they were ranchers, if they were veterinarians, if they were lab people. And that 90-minute special was what could I find in terms of people willing to talk on the record and then look at the physical forensic evidence back then. And the bottom line behind the whole 9 months that it took me to do that documentary, which ended up receiving a regional Emmy, was that I went to people like the sheriff in Logan County, where they'd had over 200 animal mutilations in just about 18 or 20 months when I started trying to do the investigation. And Sheriff Tex Graves had been sheriff there for 23 years. And he had just decided to retire, which is why I got to talk with him in huge depth. He's showing me all of his Polaroid photos. And as I was asking him questions, starting out as the beginning as an investigative reporter and a TV producer, about what I was looking at and the lack of tracks and the lack of blood and the same ear, eye, tongue, jaw, genitals, and rectum poured out in animal after animal after animal. I remember that it got to the late afternoon and he was smoking a cigarette sitting on a stool, and I had all of his Polaroids laid out chronologically on the floor, and I had been asking him questions. And as I stood up from the Polaroids, he said, "Linda, let me save you some time. The perpetrators of these animal mutilations are creatures from outer space."
Right.
I still can remember having a physical, stinging impact on me, like I had touched a garden electric fence. It had that feeling to it. Not knowing that at that moment in September of 1979, as Sheriff Tex Graves is telling me what he knows, that the next 40 years,
right,
it's 79 to 2019, and you and I are speaking in November of 2019. That was a September 79 discussion with the sheriff. That not only would everything he told me and showed me that day be evolving in spades through all other kinds of forensic evidence and eyewitness testimony that included a very important part relevant to our discussion today about New Mexico and the bismuth, magnesium, zinc, and the aluminum, is that there were ranchers in Colorado and Nebraska, in Wyoming, in New Mexico, surrounding Colorado, that I was able personally to look in their eyes and talk with about all of the mutilated animals that they had on their ranch, and hear them say to me, "Linda, I have seen a beam of light come out of something in the sky, come down into a pasture, scared the H out of me. And I have seen one of my own cows rise up in that beam of light." And another rancher would say, "And I saw a cow being put down in a beam of light." And the rancher said, "We were so scared that we admit it. We didn't go into the pasture. We waited until the sun came up." And in both of those cases was a mutilated cow.
Mm-hmm. So this
2 equals 4.
Yeah. So the metal objects, as we fast forward to the 90s, would they possibly have come from one of these craft?
Okay. I remember being in Philadelphia, in my office there, in April of 1996, when Art Bell had me doing investigative reports for him. And he would call me up and ask me to do 5 hours about global warming or 4 hours about abductions or whatever it was. And we had been on the air together for at least 5 years prior to this phone call from Art. And at that time, this is important, we had audience measurement of about 5 million people on Coast to Coast and Dreamland at that time. Larry King on CNN never exceeded about 1 million. So that means that the radio work that Art Bell and I were doing for Coast to Coast and Dreamland was getting 5 times the audience of Larry King.
And you weren't even in prime time.
Well, we started in Philadelphia. Art would have me start, because it was 5 hours then. I would usually start at 11. My 11, 12, it would be 11, 12, 1, 2. I either started at 1, which was 10 p.m. at the beginning, or 2, which was 11 when all of the networks went. And I'd get up at 6 a.m. That's when I would be getting off. And there were repeating subjects, and this is important. The context for Coast to Coast in Dreamland was not just UFOs, ETs. We had a very broad range of subjects that included global warming and the science behind getting vaccines for a disease and a whole lot of things. So when Art called me that day in April of 1996, it was, Linda, I've just received a very strange package. It has a letter in it. It is typed, and there are all of these metal pieces. He said, I think some of it looks like aluminum, but I don't know what I've got. He said, I want to send you some of these little pieces and see if you can find out from a lab, what is it? That was the beginning. And within a short period of time, I had been able to send one of several, there were circle and oval and squares that are in my book, Glimpses of Other Realities, Volume 2, High Strangeness, that came out only 2 years later. I started that investigation that we're going to go into in depth, and then I published Glimpses Volume 2, and it starts out with everything that I had done in this investigation chapter, the first chapter. So my goal is to report everything, and I announced that on the radio repeatedly. Whatever we've got, I'm going to report. So I had gone to Alcoa Aluminum and showed them a photograph, which shows the squares, the circles, and all of that. And they said, well, it looks from the photograph, we're dealing with what are called cutout dies, D-Y-E-S. It's used in industrial machinery and everything all the time. You take samples and you get them analyzed. And that's what Alcoa Aluminum got. Okay, so they didn't send a paper report. They called me up. This was right at the beginning. And remember, the man said, where did you say this came from? And I told him. I said, it allegedly has come from a crashed UFO at the end of the 40s, and that we're trying to find out what it's made of. And he said, well, it's 99.5% pure aluminum, which is puzzling to us because we do not produce at that purity for any market. Well, that was ding one to my mind. Wow.
Yeah.
Why would we have 99.5% pure aluminum in these die cutouts if Alcoa doesn't even produce? Okay, so now we didn't know what was going to unfold. The next thing that happened, and I'll just weave in a little bit. This was the letter. This is the original that Art sent me on fax, with each letter, and there were 5, and this was the beginning. And the date was April 10th, 1996.
It's an amazing letter.
Yeah, and I've only highlighted a few things to start out today. This is the letter writer, currently serving in the military. I would end up getting a long-distance phone call to my office in Philadelphia. Art was in Pahrump, Nevada. And because I was on the air so much, and I gave out numbers for where people could contact me for whistleblower information, it wasn't a surprise then that I got this call. And he said, I am the letter writer with the shipments of the metal. And why this was important, because the content in these 5 letters ranges from the practical, from the amazing about that a good friend of the letter of the person who has sent us knows Neil Armstrong. I'll get to that in a second. And in the letter, it said that I am currently serving in the military, but it didn't go into where, how, or why. It was the telephone call. He said, I am serving in the United States Army like my grandfather was serving in the 40s. I want you to know that what I have sent you is truly from my grandfather's legacy. He said, I am being shipped out to Iraq, and I do not know if I will come back alive. And I want you, meaning the reporter who is reporting science, I want you to know that this is real. This is from my grandfather's box that he died in 1974. So it was one of those clarifying, okay, Army generation respected his grandfather. His grandfather had told him a tremendous amount about being in the Army and being a security post at where one of the many unidentified flying objects came down in the New Mexico region in the 40s. Now, here is a really, really important part to keep this going. There is in one of the letters where he gives a latitude, longitude, and I believe it is the fourth letter. Get these put together here. Here it is. It's the fifth letter. This fifth letter, so April 10th to July 5th, that was the 5 letters. It is not until the fifth letter and the phone call to me was about that time. He said, and he also was making it very clear the literal sentences that he said he typed, because I asked him in the phone call, you talk about portals, you talk about dimensional jumps. Are you interpreting? He said, no. He said, I have been typing directly from my grandfather's handwritten diary left with the metal pieces, and the grandfather died in 1974. Okay, here's one of the most important parts of all 5 letters. Didn't come till July 5th letter. Okay, because I asked him, where is the exact latitude, longitude? On the phone, he didn't give it to me. In this letter. Okay, regarding the precise location of the crash site, from Granddad's journal, quotation marks. Trajectory track was plotted at 31 degrees, 20 minutes to 32 degrees north latitude. Object reversed course exactly without any discernible deviation. That means we are tracking on radar. This was tracked. It's coming like this. Then it stops and does this.
Wow.
That implies intelligent control, whether the craft is artificial intelligence, whether there are beings inside that are artificial intelligence, or if they are prime intelligence. There is intelligence.
Yep,
it's
for
on
sure.
latitude, longitude, and that the grandfather knows it was tracked and then does this. Object, reverse course exactly without any discernible deviation, proceeding to impact site between San Mateo Mountains and Sierra Blanca. Object debris spotted within 30-mile radius of the Army Air Force field. Now, another place in the letter, he talks about his grandfather working for the U.S. Air Force or with Air Force, and he was Army. Okay, there was no United States Air Force until September 18th, 1947.
Right.
That was the date that Truman created the Central Intelligence Agency that Stanton Friedman and I and Bob Wood and others in all of our investigations of MJ-12. That the context for the creation of the Central Intelligence Agency was directly related to all of the previous crashes of unidentified aerial phenomena that came down in Socorro and places that were to the far west from Roswell. And that was in May. By June, Kenneth Arnold made international headlines talking about seeing 9 objects that were in this kind of a curved loop, and that they were doing this. And that's why he said it was like skipping a stone across the water, and they became known as flying saucers by Kenneth. Okay, that was June 24th. Crashes that our government knew about, whether the public did or not, in May of 1947. Kenneth Arnold makes international headlines June 24th around the world. 1 week later, people lose sight of this. June 24th, 7 days later, first week of July, Roswell.
Right.
3, and they are identified as wedge-shaped. A wedge is the shape of a piece of pie, not this, not a crescent, not a circle, not a lens. Wedge-shaped. 3, wedge-shaped craft. They were in 3 positions. One was between Roswell and Corona. That's the one that everybody heard about from the newspaper, the Daily Record, saying flying saucer crashes on New Mexico Ranch. But where that was, and that was called Landing Zone 1, 70 miles from the Roswell Army Airfield, 70 miles to a very wild, completely rural place that was about 37 miles from Corona. So neither Roswell nor Corona were the site. It was between Corona and Roswell. Okay, Landing Zone 1. That is where there were bodies. Landing Zone 2. Landing Zone 2 was at White Sands, and this is where they had 1 live and 2 dead.
Right.
And the documents through the MJ-12 work said that the investigators inside of Landing Zone 2 at White Sand in that first week of July, when they pushed against the walls, to their amazement, what we would call drawers suddenly came out, and what was called the International Phenomenon, the Unidentified Phenomenon Agency, what was it, IPU, International Phenomenon, that they were investigating for MJ-12, Phenomenon Unit, the International Phenomenon Unit. And that inside of those drawers, and in the IPU first report that was dated in 1947, it had and said body parts dissected as you would a frog of unknown origin were found at the site. Other information said they found body parts inside of these drawers.
Mm-hmm.
Other reports said they were found outside of the wedge-shaped craft. Nowhere do the documents say if they were animals, humans, or aliens. And this is really important because this was being reported in that week. Nothing like that was ever revealed. And the third location, all happening in the same time period, was the craft came down on the Mescalera Indian Reservation, and that was near Alamogordo. So those 3 of the first week of Roswell, the government tried to get away with, from then on, that there was only 1 incident, nothing else, and that is the big lie. So May, June 24th, first week in July, but it doesn't end there. Because by September 18th of 1947, when Harry S. Truman not only created the Central Intelligence Agency to deal with UFOs and ETs as a primary, secret, highly classified subject, he separated the Army and the Air Force. there was not any U.S. Air Force till that date.
Mm-hmm.
In the letters, this says it was in the late 40s and refers to the USAF. So the whole history related to these metal pieces has to be after September 18th, 1947.
Right. Yep.
And the very fact that that latitude longitude defines Sierra Blanca and the San Mateo Mountains as the boundaries of where that craft came down in that latitude longitude. Look on a map. Sierra Blanca is on the east side of White Sands, and the San Mateo are on the west side. In between those two boundaries is White Sands.
Yeah.
So, Colonel Philip J. Corso, when I met him for the first time on July 4th, 1997, in Roswell, at the 50th anniversary of the, what we'll call the first week of July, the 3 crashes, but certainly not all that was happening.
Mm-hmm.
When he shook my hand, he had this smile on his face, and he said, "I've always wanted to meet you and say, how the hell have you gotten so much classified information?" And that led to a fascinating discussion with him in which he said, and eventually in his own book, The Day After Roswell, which I recommend everybody should read,
Yep.
that he, Colonel Corso, working for General Arthur Trudeau, who was the first R&D head in the Pentagon, appointed by then President General Dwight D. Eisenhower, Colonel Corso said, I had an assignment to go to White Sands. And there I met an alien. It's right there. And told me in his book. And he said the communication was telepathic. And the one sentence I can give you from the telepathy is, it's a new world coming if you can take it.
Right. And this backs up what the Army sergeant wrote in his letter.
That's right.
Yep.
So now, if you take the timeline from, let's say, 48, 49, our government knew a lot, and that the collection of this bismuth, and now I'm jumping, that I start investigating, and I'm on the aluminum, and we go through letters. I'll do this in more sequence and then come back to what I was going to tell you. When we got the next letter, it was dated April 22nd, and he had heard me on the radio talking about alcoa aluminum. So now we're at the second letter on April 22nd, and he says in one of the paragraphs, quote, Granddad stated their own, meaning the United States government, whoever was doing analysis, stated their own analysis of the samples indicated it as pure extract aluminum as a conductor for the electromagnetic fields created in the propulsion systems. We're moving forward.
Yep.
Now, the third letter came dated May 27th. So we've gone from April, a whole month, to May, and I am reporting almost every week on the radio about what I'm finding. I have listened with interest to the ongoing reports about the samples that I'm doing. And he said, I now include in this shipment, dated May 27, 1996, the enclosed, and can only say that these scrapings came from the exterior underside of the, now in these letters, he goes between disc, capital D-I-S-C, but has words wedge-shaped.
Yep.
And so it is like people today will say UFO. Well, that UFO could be cylindrical, spherical, lens-shaped, triangle, ice cream cone. There are dozens and dozens of shapes, and everybody says UFO. So clearly, his grandfather referred to it, which the government was pushing at the time, that there was only the one crash. It was a disc flying saucer, which was not true.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why I think he uses the capital word underside of the disc, because his own letters say wedge shape, like a piece of pie. It literally was a shell-like shielding of the disc, brittle and layered almost with a prefabricated design and placing. Keep in mind that these are the last of Granddad's samples. They have sat for years inside a closet with his personal effects. And Art says, I'm going to send you some of this. He says, I only have 6 pieces.
Right.
And he said, Whitley Strieber wants some, and I want Jacques Vallée. And we knew that of these 6 pieces, they were going to have to be cut in order to be studied. And that's the beginning of how this stuff started going out. And he sent me 2 or 3. Well, interesting the way life and work weaves. I knew a microbiologist at the University of Michigan who had helped me immensely in all the work that I had started doing in crop circle investigations in 1992, 3, 4, 5, 6, by the time of the first letter. So after Alcoa Aluminum, I thought of him. Can I call him? He's very interested in the physics of crop formations. Maybe he would be able, with using facilities at the University of Michigan, one of the better universities in the United States. And I called him up and said, now I've got, in addition to the aluminum, I've got this really, it's silver on one side, it's
right.
black on the bottom, it's clearly layered. Can you help me? Is there any way that you can do some really high-end quality examinations and tell me what is the black, what is the silver, how is it made? And he said, oh, I would love to. But Linda, you are never, ever to use my name.
Mm-hmm.
You can say University of Michigan, but nothing else. So this started a saga that is going on to this day with To the Stars, the Tom DeLonge, Hal Puthoff, Steve Justice, Semivan, the group, that they are investigating exactly this one of my pieces that came all the way back 22 years. And it is amazing that this material, not a single lab or person anywhere on this planet, after many challenges, has ever been able to reproduce.
Right.
It is at the atomic and the molecular level known now as nanotechnology. That's what this is. When Tom DeLonge and TTSA use the word meta materials, take the meta out. It's nanotechnology. This is what it is, and they know. Why is this significant? You will hear people even today, oh, it's just an accumulation in a lab where they poured metals in. Or, oh, it's electroplating. And people who say that are showing their profound ignorance that they have not studied all of the work that I did with the University of Michigan. Carnegie Institute in Washington, D.C. did the ion microprobe analysis to look at the isotopic ratio of the magnesium that we discovered. So there are really sophisticated labs with really sophisticated work. Fills an entire binder. Sorry. That I delivered one of my binders of 22 years to TTSA with one of the pieces of mine that they're now studying. I have 2 binders in my office, and I have my own other piece of magnesium, zinc, and aluminum, which I continue to study. What happened that when the University of Michigan scientist got this, and he started taking photographs, and he called me up and he said, this is puzzling. We've got to do several. We want to do energy dispersive. We want to do wave dispersive. We want to do electron microscopy. We want to do electron microscopy in what's called the EDS mode. And he said, I need your approval that we may have to do the end of a pin. We may have to do some penetration.
Right.
And I said, please, I just don't want any of this destroyed. We have only a little bit. And if the story is true that this material came from the bottom of a wedge-shaped craft, and another sentence in another letter, he said, and his grandfather reported. In fact, it's worth reading what the grandfather. This is, again, in the 5th letter. He puts again quotes. In addition to the latitude, longitude that would end up in White Sands, this is a quote from his granddad's journal. Quote, sample extraction. We're talking about the what turned out to be the bismuth magnesium, and I'll give you more specs on this in a second. Sample extraction that the grandfather pulled from the bottom radiated light for a full 3 hours. Originally located on the central underside of a wedge-shaped capital DISC. Those are totally opposite, but we've talked about why he would say that. It's wedge-shaped. Speculate some type of shielding to enable craft and crew to survive accelerated entry into atmosphere when craft was experiencing uncontrolled descent, and that there was ash and that all of the remains were bagged in metal footlockers, and they were sent to the New Mexico Institute of Mining and Technology, secondary examinations at Los Alamos facility, and the footlockers after that. New Mexico Tech, Los Alamos. Los Alamos at that time was the single most secret, most protected lab in the United States, because that's where the bomb had been developed, and it dropped in 1945 on Japan, the test at Los Alamos. And we're talking about it has to be after September 1847. But that's only 45, that's only 2 years after the bombs dropped, and that the likelihood is that the bismuth, magnesium, and the aluminum came from a crash in 48 or 49. We're still within 5 years, 4 to 5 years. So New Mexico Tech would have been close to White Sands. Next stop, Los Alamos, and then footlockers subsequently airlifted by courier to Wright Field, Ohio, which became Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, also later in the 40s. Really important labs where no information is going to get out. So when I started getting by fax, back then, believe it or not, no computers. We were all doing faxes, Art to me to him, the scientists' faxes. The first fax that came out showing me that what they were finding from the silver and black with all of the layers. And I have a really great photo. Okay, this is a photo that I took at the Franklin Mint in 1999, September, with working with a technician who had a very, very good macro lens where we could get in and fill the screen with this is a small piece. This is probably 3/4 of an inch long and less than 1/4 of an inch high. But I wanted to be able to show all of the layers which are what make this so consequential. And what you're looking at is the bottom is black, the top is silver. And the reason is the black is the bismuth, 1 to 4 microns. That's equivalent to about the diameter of half of a human blood cell. And above each of the black bismuth layers is a silver layer that is 97.6% magnesium and 2.4% zinc. That is an alloy. And they alternate for approximately 30 layers, pure bismuth to magnesium zinc, and that each of the pieces was not very long, and the height is less than 1/4 of an inch, to give you...
Right.
Okay. So when I learned this is what this is made out of, I went to an exotic metals manufacturer in New Jersey, and I asked him, can you explain to me how you would make a layered metal piece that I've gotten the specs from the University of Michigan? And I was recording to put on Coast to Coast with Art, the report. Did it with dozens of scientists. And he started laughing. And he started laughing because he said, you can't do that.
Mm-hmm.
You can't put magnesium and bismuth together. They immediately fall apart. He said, you'd have to have a bonding agent. I said, well, we've looked for a bonding agent, and there's nothing. This is bound at the atomic and molecular level. And that exotic metals manufacturer laughed again and said, it's not possible. Well, that was sort of where the rubber hit the road, that everywhere I went, into normal labs, aerospace, Paul Chu, who was the genius with superconductors down in Houston, he had a piece for 2 months and sent me back a letter that is in my archive, that what he was looking for, he couldn't find. Everybody who was handling it, and I had a notebook of about 100 people that I was calling and doing interviews or sending out pieces to get information. And on the air, because I was on the air every week with Art, I was putting out, if there's anybody out there who has any ability to try to duplicate this, get in touch with me, and I'd give out my phone number, my address, my fax number. Well, what started happening is I started getting whistleblowers saying, we know what this does. You get it in the right kind of field, and it turns into a lifting body. That was the phrase they kept using. Neutralize gravity. Yeah. So this is 96, 97, 98, 99, 2000, go all the way up to 2014, all that time. 2014, I'm at a conference, and a man approaches me and says, I know a lot about the business magnesium. In a conference, it's one of the best places in the world for whistleblowers to come. I'm surrounded by 50 people after doing a presentation. It's loud, it's noisy, and this is how I got to hear these sentences. I worked at Area 51 S4, and I worked on a slab of this material that you've got little pieces of. He said, I worked with a slab that was 6 feet by 3 feet. And he said, that aluminum is important. They are both skins. That's the word he used. He said, the bismuth magnesium goes on the outside of the craft. That's the silver. Mm-hmm. On the inside, a few inches away, is the pure aluminum. And it must be, he said, at least 99.5% pure aluminum, which is the first I got back from Alcoa. In between, he said, you remember how in some of those earlier reports from New Mexico, ranchers said that they came across debris and it looked like horse hair was hanging out of the debris and glowing light at the end? He said that is what is necessary in these craft. We today would talk about it and call it fiber optics. He said it's way more sophisticated than fiber optics. And he said we were able at Area 51 S4 to be able to get enough information that we know that when those two skins, and so it would be the entire aluminum would be on the inside and the bismuth magnesium would be on the outside, and in between is all of this AI functioning material. He said it brings gravity to zero. That's exactly the way he put it.
Mm-hmm.
And if you bring gravity to zero, you also get rid of inertial forces.
Yep.
And then he said, and that's why there are radar operators who have seen an unidentified going at thousands of miles an hour, stop on a dime, do a 90-degree turn. And he said, because Linda, you could, when this is operating, you could stand there and blow on one of these craft in the zero gravity, zero inertial force, and it would move. There's no inertial force. Well, I have now, we're talking in the end of 2019. That the discussion at the conference was in 2014. In between, I have had other whistleblowers, and I have learned that it isn't just pure aluminum. It has atomically placed, meaning all of this is about putting everything together atom by atom by atom at a molecular level. This is nanotechnology. Nobody anywhere on planet Earth in the human race had the ability to produce this bismuth, magnesium, zinc, and the pure aluminum in 1947, 48, 49, the 50s, 60s, 70s. We get up to the 80s, who knows what the black world had been able to back engineer by then, because that's what they've been trying to do. They've been trying for 70 years to try to back engineer, understand extraterrestrial technology, and build it and patent it and get more power on the planet. So if the key to all of it, the bismuth, magnesium, zinc, is beautiful and strange and mysterious and challenging, but the key may be atomically placed monoatomic iridium inside of the 99.5% aluminum, that you've got to have both skins in order for these craft to do the amazing things that they do. Now, I personally do not see that reporting honestly everything that I have learned in the last 22 years should be a problem for anyone. I think that what we as the human family deserve is to get some honesty about the fact that we're not alone in this universe, that other intelligences have been coming and going on this planet, basing themselves here when they wanted to, having bases on the moon and Mars and through the solar system, and God only knows how far through the Milky Way galaxy into other galaxies. Because that is exactly the story that comes from 2019 era whistleblowers, whether they've been in military or intel. Mm-hmm. One of the most, I would say, one of the most consistent themes to me over the last 5 years is that our government, at least, could also be Russia and China. It could be that human strong nations have all had ETs interacting with them. And everybody's got these policies of denial, thinking that they'll get a one-up leg over everybody else by being able to back engineer this ET technology. And the truth could be that the non-humans help China, help Russia, help Brazil, help the United States, help anybody who is taking it seriously.
Yep.
Whatever the truth is, the whistleblowers, more than two, and I'll just leave it at that, say that we have had agreements with what are considered allied other intelligences since the 1970s to do interstellar trade. Remember when the UK guy in 2000 or 2001, Gary McKinnon?
Yep.
And he made waves because he had hacked into a facility in the United States and somebody had a spreadsheet on their computer. And Gary McKinnon in London, on his little computer, is looking at a spreadsheet, non-terrestrial pilots, information that he took to be UFO, other related. Okay, it fits into what the whistleblowers say, that they have firsthand knowledge, meaning they've been in these programs, and that we have interstellar trade throughout the Milky Way galaxy, and that it has been in existence since the 1970s with the help of ally non-humans, extraterrestrials, whatever word you want to use, and that the interstellar trade has evolved and become sophisticated in this sense. What is it that Earth governments now need almost more than anything else to keep the computer, space, aerospace, all of it going? They need rare metals. Our planet has only a certain percentage of gold, niobium, and some of these very rare metals that are at the heart of being able to do the big, fantastic advanced computer systems. China has been trying to do a deal with Australia for 15 years to buy up all of the rare earth metals that are over in Perth on the west side of Australia. I've read some of the stories myself about how China knows that they need these for their world to keep going. Australia, even though it would be billions and billions of dollars China would be prepared to pay, I think Australia to date has said, slow down, we want to keep our metals for ourselves. I think that is the current policy. If it's changed, excuse me. But the bigger issue is, on our planet, the major nations are competing with each other for rare metals. If the United States has had a deal with allies since the 1970s for interstellar trade throughout the Milky Way galaxy, it might explain why the United States is not so worried, does not issue about our need for advanced rare metals, because we already are getting them from someplace else. And this leads to the biggest box. If the United States has had, let's use the word extraterrestrial, meaning that they have the ability to be in other parts of the Milky Way galaxy, no matter what their source is. They're out in outer space. They've got trade routes. And we call them allies, and I would assume that would stick if they're helping us stay up to speed with rare metals. Every single whistleblower has told me there are hostiles. One was a remote viewer who worked in Project Stargate at the Defense Intelligence Agency and NSA in that was the 1987 to 90 period. And one of them, Lynn Buchanan, these were very talented men who had the ability to do controlled remote viewing, and they did exceptional work for the CIA and the NSA and others, no matter what. The CIA threw remote viewing under the bus about 10 years ago, saying they never got anything valuable. Well, it really pissed off some of those controlled remote viewers, because they said that's not true. They're just being political. They're trying not to piss off Congress. And so they're saying they never got anything valuable. That's not true. Well, those same pissed off remote viewers are the ones who say, we, all of us, were able to get that there are multiple intelligences And some fall in the category of friendly. Some fall in the category, the biggest category, neutral, and then hostile. And Lynn Buchanan said that he got from the hostiles, they would like to annihilate every life form on the surface of this earth. And when you say, why? Nobody has an answer to that why. But here's the good news. Every single remote viewer and military people who have been whistleblowers to me, this is a consistent theme. Of the friendlies, at least 4 are so strong, so advanced, so capable, they can keep the hostiles at bay.
Yep.
Why can't we all be told that? Why can't we jump from being kept as dumb and blind by policies, lies, and why can't we be brought up like this? We're going to the middle of the 21st century, told exactly what I just told you. There's nothing to worry about as long as we keep our political alliances, and we're going to introduce them, and we're going to now be a global world. It isn't going to be China versus Russia versus the United States versus Brazil. It's going to be the world human government, that we are going to be collaborating with our extraterrestrial allies, and we're going to enter a new age. We're going to have bases on Mars. We're going to have bases on the moon and beyond. And we are going to start doing a 6 o'clock news broadcast for you from Mars. That's what, to me, that's where we should be.
Well, that answers my question. What do you think the world will look like post-disclosure? But I get the feeling we've been given just a little taste in the last couple of years with some things disclosed. But I get the feeling that that's just to keep the masses happy, and this could drag on for years and years and years.
Well, my point of view is Robert Bigelow of Bigelow Aerospace. He told 60 Minutes 3 years ago, disclosure. That happened in the 1940s with the headline, Flying Saucer Crashes on the Ranch. We have been having disclosure around this planet with thousands of books, thousands of newspaper photos, all of it since World War II. What we are waiting for is official confirmation from the world governments to all of the people at the same time. We are not alone in this universe, and we never have been. And now we're going to have to change a lot of history books. We're going to have to change a lot of things. But it would be better now for all of you to get up to speed on what the truth is about our past, our present, and our future than to continue going into the rest of the 21st century, perpetuating the lies that an increasingly large number of people on this planet in military and in science and the power brokers know. When they become the biggest island on earth, those that know, then what does happen to those that have been kept in ignorance? That is the part that I do not think is fair. I feel a tremendous empathy with my fellow humans. I think that this is exactly the time when all of the truth should be told, the good, the bad, and the neutral, and go into the 21st century with everybody on Earth finding a reason for why it is important to study, for the world to be given more education, so that we can take people who have good brains in an island in the Philippines who do not have a chance to be working in computers or medicine unless somebody takes them. And that if that started, if we started making this whole planet come up to speed, sorry, we didn't tell you everything before, but we didn't think that you could handle it. Now we have allies and we know that we're okay, and we're going to bring the planet up to the 22nd century with all of you. And that there will be more room, because what does all this imply? that there are other planets. People in the abduction syndrome say that they've been to other planets where, what do they see? Pyramids. Pyramids in entire city structures made out of pyramids. It could be, if we could get past self-destruction of our own wars, get past lies to keep us in an ignorance that goes back 12, 20,000 years in relationship to the universe. If we were told the truth, if we were able to show what are on the surface of other planets that match exactly what Egypt was, what Sumeria was, and that there is a link, geophysical link, there is a blood link, that we didn't just spring on this planet 2 million years ago as Homo erectus and evolve. That's exactly what that briefing paper for the President of the United States at Kirtland Air Force Base here in Albuquerque, it said to me in April 9, 1983, when I was working on an hour special for Home Box Office. Extraterrestrial biological entities manipulated DNA and already evolving primates to create Homo sapien, and the Latin was used. That is the single most fundamentally important and truthful sentence that perhaps I've ever been shown. That's where it all starts.
Right.
Earth has been used as a laboratory. That a DIA guy told me in December of 1999, Linda, our government has proof. 3 competing extraterrestrial civilizations have been mixing and matching genes and terraforming this planet as a laboratory 2/3 deep water for at least 270 million years. And when I said, sir, what is the proof? He said, Linda, I'm sorry, that is too dangerous for me to tell, for you and for me. That intrigues me. What would be so dangerous about knowing the absolute fundamental proof of 3 competing extraterrestrial civilizations on our planet for at least 270 million years, goes back before the time of the dinosaurs? He told me, we know for a fact the dinosaurs were an 85 million year experiment by the Ebens, the ones with the pear-shaped heads and gray skin, but they are not the only ones. Well, why would they have an 85 million year experiment with dinosaurs on the planet if there are 2 other competing civilizations? When you get to what I think are beginning to be the layers of real, honest truth about the history of this planet, the mysteries and the questions begin to expand exponentially. If Homo sapien, and now Homo sapien sapien, that's you, me, and the current model of a humanoid on Earth, if we are the result of experimentation by one of 3 competing civilizations, what are they competing over? What is the fight over? And why in a fight of 3 extraterrestrial civilizations wanting to use a watery planet as a laboratory? That seems also another 2 + 2 = 4. There probably aren't many planets like this.
No.
Special planet, special conditions. You can mix and match genes in anything you want to here, just by collecting genes. And if you know how to do genome sequencing, which clearly the ETs do, you can make anything you want. What is at the root of their conflict that would give us insights about 270 million years of mixing and matching genes and harvesting metals, gold, from our planet?
It's fascinating to think what that could be. I don't have the answer.
Well, it's this big. It is this big. This is not just the Earth, but where we are at such a huge disconnect, are we literally actually going to go through the 21st century with people? Elon Musk is going to get a settlement on Mars. There's a bunch of nations that want competition on the moon now. They want bases there. Maybe the ETs that have been inside of the moon for millions of years have decided, okay, time for us to move on to another location in the solar system. Let Earth fight over the moon. What is going to be the international relationship on Mars? It's already started. And the idea of 6 o'clock news, it takes 8 minutes for light to travel from the Earth to Mars. It takes 8 minutes for it to come back. So we can have 8-minute delayed news from Mars. And to even try to imagine, you, me, and the listeners, that we would go from 2019 to 2100, the next 80 years, putting up with a huge lie, a huge con by the power brokers on Earth, that humans are the only intelligent life form in this universe. I mean, it's so absurd as I say those words.
Yeah.
And therefore, this is the revolutionary moment. Everybody feels it. It's taking place around the world in the political chaos. There is agitation everywhere. And to me, I read the agitation is that there is something in the millennial generation, those that are up to their 30s. They are not putting up with a lot.
No.
They are willing to go out into the streets in Hong Kong and be hurt badly, because they see and feel the unfairness of totalitarian rule. The United States is on some kind of a razor's edge right now. Are we going to go toward totalitarian fascism, where the government and the corporations rule everything? Is that possible? That this beautiful experiment with democracy and freedom, it's less than 300 years experiment, that the way things are slipping and sliding, that we would, as a nation, allow ourselves to become totalitarian? Is that possible? And this is when, to me, not only is it inevitable, if we're going to survive, if the United States of America is going to survive as a democracy, we have to lead the headline. We are not alone in this universe. We never have been. Yes, we have lied. We have had policies of denials. And in the beginning, it was because we didn't know what we were dealing with. And now we can introduce to you 4 allies. And once you know we have 4 allies, and we're going to move out into space, and there will be a real space force, you on Earth, you will be protected. But we are moving into the rest of this century into a brand new frontier, exactly like Star Trek. We're going to be going out, and it will be public what we've been doing secretly.
Mm-hmm.
That might give the United States a chance to remain a democratic republic if they told the whole bloody truth.
Yeah. Bring it on, Linda. It's been a fascinating discussion. Now, people who want to learn more about the metal object and especially read the letters, go to your site at earthfiles.com.
Yes. I have all 7 parts of Earth Files with every one of the 5 letters. And it is easy. You just go to earthfiles.com, go down on the headlines page. You will see a picture that is like this, has my copyright on it. You click. It takes you to one page with all 7 parts. You start with 1. You go into that big report. You come back. You click on 2. And that's all you have to do. Is you just keep weaving out of that 1 page of 7 links, and you can get the whole story and read every word. And you and I talked about this at the beginning. What is amazing is if this is a 47, 48, 49 diary, that grandfather, in his own handwriting, according to his grandson who I talked to, talks about dimensional portal leaps, talks about other dimensions, talks about their being able, as the craft was coming down, because, according to the letters, that there was something like a lightning bolt. We've heard variations on some kind of a thunderstorm or lightning bolt having an interaction with a craft, but nobody has ever been able to nail down which one. What if they knew it wasn't us? We humans were not involved with any of this. They talk about them having to make a decision about a dimensional impact that they could have had on a large part of the United States, and it would have killed a lot of humans. It says right in the letter.
Yeah, it's fascinating.
They decide to what? Release a self-destruct mechanism so that their propulsion system would not fall into the hands of capital T-E-R-R-A-N-S, Terrans, a word that was used by the Greeks. Now, that then makes suspect, would there be anything viable in the bismuth, magnesium, zinc if it has been exposed to a self-destructive mechanism? This is a question. It goes all the way back to when, I don't remember if you were seeing this before we had the blank out, but I was showing the close-up of this and raising the question. You see, in fact, the better photograph to illustrate, if you didn't see this, this was part of what I was talking about. Do you see how the waves in those layers, the white is bismuth in the electron microscope.
Yep.
They change their color. The bismuth magnesium are the shades of gray.
Right.
See how the peak of the waves in every layer echo each other.
Mm-hmm.
And that we found, and that was one of the first questions from the professor at the University of Michigan. He said, Linda, I don't understand this. The letters say that there was a self-destruct mechanism. And yet, every place that we study, it looks like there's consistency in the waves. Now, it could be that we are looking at the byproduct of some sort of heat, or it is an indication that that all of it was not destroyed. And that is another mystery. Do we have flawed metal because they released a self-destruct on purpose?
Yep, makes sense.
Or not? And this is, can you imagine ever turning away from any of what we've talked about this morning? Once you've been exposed to all of this, how could you ever want to do anything?
You want to learn more.
You want to live forever and know what is going on in this universe and how does Earth turn out?
Yep. Well, Linda, that's we've just run out of time, but I just want to tell folks that they can catch you every Wednesday night, 7:30 Mountain Time, 9:30 in the East.
Yes, my
Earth Files
YouTube channel. We do a live stream. I always present news, and then when I take Q&A from the wonderful audience, you and I are learning firsthand that the humans on this planet who are paying attention, they are smart. They ask great questions, and they're not afraid of knowing the truth.
Right.
And that is worth struggling for.
Great. Do yourself a favor, subscribe to Linda's YouTube channel on Earth Files. Linda, thanks very much, and hope we talk with you again pretty soon.
Me too. Thank you.
That's Linda Moulton Howe joining us on the Paranormal UK Radio Network. Next week, one man's encounter with what he calls the wrinkled brow aliens.
I can't tell. I can only see their heads. They're starting to move over me. I feel as if I'm floating. I don't understand. I don't understand what's going on, but they do not look frightening. Fred, while you are floating, are they still grasping you? I say, yes, Fred. So you're all floating together? I say, yes. Fred, how many of you are there? And I say, 4. At what speed? I say, we're starting to move. Oh my God, they're moving me through the glass of the window. Oh, that's so weird. I breathe heavily. They're telling me not to be afraid. I see them coming through the glass with me. I breathe hard. I see the glass passing through my body, and I don't feel anything. I think I should be cut by the glass, but I don't feel anything. Fred, what gender are they? I say, the one who looked into my eyes first, he's on my left, holding my left arm. I sense that he's a male. The one on my right, holding my right arm, I sense that she's female. The one over me, and now he has his right arm on my right leg, upper thigh. He's male too. And we're floating past the trailer. We're starting to rise up, and there's this light. There's this strange light. It's getting brighter and brighter, and I'm looking around as best as I can. I can see the trailer disappearing below me, and then the drilling rig moving off into the distance.
What followed was one of the most bizarre alien abductions ever recorded. Bruce Cornett gives us a blow-by-blow description of his abduction from the notes taken from his regression therapy session in 1995. That's coming up next week on Aliens Revealed Live, here on the Paranormal UK Radio Network. Well, thanks for being with us. Don't forget to check out our site at arlhub.com. Next week, more from the Aliens Revealed Live files, and as always, keep looking upwards and take care.